My name is Daniel, and I want to tell you something important. I am doing this video because I don't want any child to go through the pain I went through. I don't hate my parents. I love them, but I wish they listened to me when I needed them most. Maybe things would have been different. I grew up in a big family. My parents were always busy. My dad was a school teacher, and my mum sold food at the market. They worked from morning till night. We had food. We had clothes. We went to school. But something was missing. Their time, their attention, and their love. As a child, I never felt seen. They would come home tired and angry. If I tried to talk to them, they would say, "I'm busy," or "Go and do your homework." When I brought home my drawings or poems, they didn't even look at them. I started to feel like I didn't matter. When I was 14, I started feeling very sad. I didn't know why. I lost interest in school. I didn't want to eat. I cried at night. Sometimes I just sat alone in my room for hours. I wanted to talk to someone, but no one asked how I was feeling. Not even once. One day, I told my mum, "Mummy, I feel like something is wrong with me." She said, "It's just stress. You're fine. Go and sleep." That night, I cried into my pillow. I wished she would come into the room, hug me, and say, "Tell me what's wrong." But she didn't. I felt invisible. I felt like I didn't exist. At school, I tried to talk to my friends, but they laughed and said I was being too emotional. I even posted sad messages online, but no one paid attention. I wrote poems and left them in my school bag, hoping someone would read them. No one did. One afternoon, everything became too much. I walked to a quiet bridge near my school. I stood there for a long time. I was ready to give up. My heart was heavy, and I felt like no one would miss me. As I stood there, tears running down my face, a stranger walked by. He stopped. He looked at me and said, "Are you okay?" I couldn't speak. I just shook my head. He took me to a small shop nearby, bought me a drink, and let me talk. He didn't know me, but he cared. That man saved my life. That evening, he brought me home and spoke to my parents. That's when they finally sat down and listened to me. I told them everything. I cried. My mum cried. My dad said nothing, just looked down. It was the first time we had a real conversation in years. Slowly, I started to heal. But something happened that broke my heart again. Years later, my younger brother, Samuel, left a letter on my table. It said, "Daniel, I feel like nobody sees me. I want to disappear. I don't want to live like this anymore." I dropped the letter and ran out of the house. I searched for him everywhere. I found him sitting alone in an empty football field. His eyes were full of tears, just like mine were years ago. I hugged him tightly and said, "I see you. I hear you. I love you." That night, I read the letter out loud to my parents. I told them, "This is how I felt too. We were both dying slowly, right in front of you, and you didn't see us." My mum couldn't stop crying. My dad finally spoke. He said, "I thought providing food and school fees was enough. I didn't know you needed more." And that's the problem. Many parents think that feeding a child is enough, that sending them to school is enough. But a child also needs your time, your attention, your love, your words. That's why I'm making this video, to speak to every parent watching. Your child needs you, not your money, not your gifts. You. Ask your child how they feel. Sit with them. Eat with them. Laugh with them. Cry with them. Look at their drawings. Read their poems. Celebrate their little wins. Notice their silence. Hear what they are not saying. My brother is healing now. We talk every day. We are both doing better. Our family is learning to be close again. But we almost lost everything because of silence. So I beg you, if you are a parent, please listen to your child before it's too late. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. All parents must watch this. All parents must care. All parents must listen. Because one conversation can save a life. After that night, things started to change in our house. Slowly, my parents became more quiet. Not because they were angry, but because they were thinking. My mum started asking, "How was your day?" My dad began joining us at dinner, even if he didn't talk much. It was a small change, but it was something. One evening, my brother Samuel drew a picture of our family. He gave all of us smiling faces, but he drew himself without a mouth. When I saw it, my heart broke. I knew he still felt unheard. I took the picture and showed it to our parents. "Mom, Dad, this is not just art," I said. "This is how he feels." My mum stared at the drawing for a long time. She walked into Samuel's room, sat on his bed, and hugged him without saying a word. That hug did more than any gift could ever do. After that, we decided to have family talks every Sunday. No phones, no TV, just us sitting and talking. Sometimes we laughed, sometimes we cried, but we were finally hearing each other. I started writing more. I shared my story online. At first, only a few people saw it. But then parents started commenting. "Thank you. I never knew my son felt this way. I cried after watching this. I'm going to talk to my daughter tonight. This saved my child." I realized something. My pain was turning into purpose. One day, a school invited me to speak. I stood in front of 200 parents. My hands were shaking, but I spoke from my heart. I told them about the bridge, about the letter, about the drawing with no mouth. When I finished, the room was silent. Then a woman stood up. She said, "My daughter hasn't spoken to me in months. I thought she was just being rude. I'm going home to hug her." That night, I sat in my small room and cried. Not because I was sad, but because I knew I was helping someone. I started visiting schools every week. Some children ran to hug me after my talk. Others gave me letters, sad letters, just like the one Samuel wrote. I kept all the letters. I read every word, and I made sure someone listened. My brother Samuel joined me. He started drawing again. This time with colors, with joy. He spoke to children through his art. Together we made a team. Then something happened that I never expected. A father came to me after one of my talks. His face was full of tears. He said, "I lost my son last year. I wish I had heard this before. I thought he was just quiet. I didn't know he was hurting. I didn't know what to say. I just hugged him. He cried in my arms like a child. That moment changed me. I knew the story, my story, could not stay inside me. It needed to grow. It needed to reach more people. So I started recording videos. I didn't have a camera. I used my old phone. I sat on the same wooden bench where I first read my brother's letter. I spoke with no script, just my heart. The first video got 37 views, then 100, then 1,000. Parents from all over the country started writing to me. Some asked for advice. Some just wanted to say thank you. Others sent me their children's letters and asked, "What do I do now?" I always said the same thing. Start with a conversation. Sit, listen, hug, be there. And still, the story continues. As more people began to follow my story, I started getting messages from teenagers too. Some of them said, "I showed your video to my dad. He finally listened." Others wrote things like, "I was going to end it all, but your words saved me." One message really stayed with me. A girl named Ada from a small town wrote, "Dear Daniel, I don't have anyone. My mom died, and my dad drinks every night. I watch your videos when I'm sad. You feel like the only person who understands me." I read her message again and again. I didn't know what to say at first, but I replied, "Ada, you're not alone anymore. I hear you. I see you. I care about you." She replied with crying emojis and said, "Thank you." That was all. But it meant everything. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the children like Ada, the quiet ones, the forgotten ones, the ones hiding behind smiles. So I made a decision. I told my brother Samuel, "We need to do more. This is bigger than just our story now." We went to our old classroom teacher, Mr. Felix, and told him our plan. He was shocked but proud. "You boys are doing what some adults never do," he said. He gave us access to the school hall for free. We started a small group called Safe Voice. It was just 10 of us in the beginning, 5 boys, 5 girls. We met every Saturday. We talked, drew, sang, cried, and sometimes sat in silence. And that was okay. Word spread fast. More students joined, then teachers, even some parents. Soon, we had over 50 people showing up every week. But not everyone was happy. One Sunday morning, a man knocked on our door. He said, "You are teaching children to disrespect parents. Stop this nonsense." My dad stepped forward and said something that surprised me. He said, "No, sir. My son is saving children, including mine." The man looked shocked. He walked away without another word. That day, I realized something powerful. Healing can be loud, but it can also be quiet. It happens when people finally speak and someone listens. Then came our first big chance. A radio station invited me and Samuel for an interview. We sat in front of the mic, nervous but excited. The host asked, "Daniel, what do you want parents to know the most?" I took a deep breath and said, "Please listen before it's too late. Your child might not say it, but they are begging to be seen." The station phone lines lit up. People called crying, thanking us. Some shared their own regrets. One old man said, "I wish I heard this 30 years ago. Maybe my son would still be here." That evening, I sat with my mom in the kitchen. She was quiet for a long time, then whispered, "I'm proud of you. I'm sorry I didn't listen when I should have." I hugged her tightly. That moment was worth more than gold. But the story is not over. After the radio interview, everything changed. We started getting calls from schools in nearby towns. They wanted us to come talk to their students and parents. Some even offered to pay for our transport, food, and stay. But Samuel and I didn't do it for the money. We did it because every child we met reminded us of who we used to be. Silent, confused, and hurting. One day, a woman came up to me after a school program. She wore a long wrapper and a head tie. Her eyes were red. She said, "Daniel, my son has not spoken a word to me in over 1 year. But after your talk today," he held my hand and said, "Mummy, can we talk?" She broke down in front of me, and I held her as she cried. I didn't know her name, but I knew her pain. I went home that night and told Samuel, "This is no longer just a small group. This is a movement." We gave it a new name, the Listening Project. We started creating small booklets with drawings, stories, and space for children to write their feelings. Samuel designed the covers. I wrote the content. We printed 50 copies with our savings. The next week, all of them were gone in minutes. Children were using them to express what they couldn't say out loud. One girl wrote, "I hate the sound of shouting. It makes me feel like my heart is breaking." Another wrote, "I just want my dad to say he's proud of me." We shared some of the messages online without names, and it touched thousands. More parents reached out asking for the booklets, so we printed more. A teacher from another region saw our work and invited us to a community where many children lived without mothers. The fathers were farmers, always in the fields. The children were left alone. We went there and sat under a big mango tree. No microphone, no stage. Just us, some mats, and children with tired eyes. We spoke softly. We listened deeply. A small boy named Musa came to me after the talk. He said, "Can you be my brother? My real brother doesn't talk to me." I held his hand and said, "From today, I'm your brother, and you can talk to me anytime." He smiled for the first time. We started writing down all these little stories. Every person we helped, every letter we received, every hug that changed someone's life. We were creating something big, something that couldn't be ignored. Then one day we received an email that made us freeze. "You are invited to speak at the National Youth Wellness Conference." They had seen one of our videos online and wanted me to come and share our story with people from all over the country. Leaders, doctors, school principals, even government officials. Samuel and I sat on the floor of our small room, looking at the email again and again. He whispered, "Do you think we're ready?" I said, "We were born ready. We just didn't know it." The day of the National Youth Wellness Conference finally came. Samuel and I wore the best clothes we had, white shirts, clean jeans, and shoes we had polished over and over again. Mom walked us to the main road. She held our hands like we were still little. "Make me proud," she said, holding back tears. When we arrived, The place was bigger than we imagined. A huge hall with hundreds of chairs, cameras, microphones, people in suits and traditional outfits. We stood there for a moment quietly. My hands were sweating. My legs felt weak. Samuel looked at me and said, "Just speak like you're under the mango tree." That gave me strength. When it was my turn, I walked to the stage and looked at the crowd. Then I looked at Samuel in the front row. I smiled, and I began. "Good morning. My name is Daniel. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a boy who was hurt, but refused to stay silent." I told them everything. How I was beaten, ignored, called names, and how I almost lost myself. I told them how I found my voice, how I started Safe Voice, and now the Listening Project. I shared the letters from children. I told them about Ada, about Musa, and about all the children who just wanted to be heard. The hall was silent. Then I ended with this: if you are a parent, please stop shouting. Start asking questions. Start listening. Because silence doesn't mean your child is okay. Sometimes, silence means they are screaming inside. The crowd stood up. Applause filled the room. Some people wiped their eyes. Others clapped with both hands and hearts. After the event, something happened that I never expected. A man walked up to me. His face looked familiar. Strong jaw, gray hair, sad eyes. He said, "Daniel, I'm your uncle, your father's brother." My heart stopped. He continued, "I saw you on TV. I had to come. Your father, he's sick, very sick, and he has something to tell you." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. That same week, we went to see him. We walked into a small house, and there he was, my father. Thinner, weaker, older, but still my father. He looked at me, then looked away. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," he said. I sat beside him and said nothing. He looked at Samuel. "I didn't know how to be a father. Our father beat us too. I thought that was normal." He coughed and wiped his eyes. "I see what you're doing now, and I'm proud of you, Daniel. I really am." Those words were all I ever wanted to hear. I didn't forgive him immediately. Forgiveness is a slow thing. But that day I saw something new. A crack in the wall he built around his heart. We left quietly. That night, Samuel asked, "Do you think he meant it?" I said, "Maybe, but I didn't do all this for him. I did it for the children who still have time." And so, the journey continued. We received new letters, new messages. A boy from the north said he started his own group called Young Listeners. A girl from the east made a poem that went viral, "Hug Me Before It's Too Late." We started building a website, a safe place for children to write anonymous letters, a hotline for those who had no one. Volunteers joined us. Some were doctors. Some were survivors like us. Some were just kind strangers. And still, every Saturday we returned to the same mango tree, because we promised we would never forget where we started. Weeks after our visit to my father, something strange happened in our town. A video was leaked online. It showed a teacher in one of the local schools beating a boy with a stick, hard, again and again while other students watched. The boy was crying. No one stopped it. Someone had secretly recorded it with a phone. The video went viral. People were angry. Some wanted the teacher arrested. Others defended him, saying, "That's how we were trained, and we turned out fine." But I knew better. I posted online. Not everyone who was beaten turned out fine. Some turned out silent. Some turned out broken. Some are still healing. That message spread fast. 2 days later, the head of education in our region called me. "Daniel, I want to meet you," he said. "We need your help." Samuel and I went to the meeting. Inside the office were teachers, school inspectors, and even the headmaster from the school in the video. The room was tense. They all looked at me, some angry, some ashamed. The head said, "Daniel, we want to change, but we don't know how." I stood up and said, "Start with one simple thing, listening. Every teacher must learn to listen before they punish. And every child must feel safe to speak." That day, we started training teachers. We called it Discipline with Dignity. We didn't ask schools to stop discipline. We asked them to make it fair, respectful, and calm. We brought child psychologists, counselors, and even invited students to speak. For the first time, children stood in front of their teachers and shared their pain. Some teachers cried. Some apologized. Some even hugged the children they once scolded harshly. One girl said to her teacher, "I don't hate you. I was just afraid of you." That teacher wept. Our town became the first in the region to adopt child-centered learning and respectful discipline. Other towns followed. More letters came in. One boy from a village far away wrote, "Before your story, I thought crying was weakness. Now I know it's healing. Thank you, Brother Daniel." And then, something happened I never expected. A woman from a media company in another country reached out. She said, "Daniel, we are making a documentary. We want to share your story with the world." I sat in silence. My heart was racing. The next month, they arrived with cameras, lights, big microphones. They filmed our sessions under the mango tree. They followed us to schools. They interviewed Samuel. They even visited my home and spoke to my mom. One evening, during filming, my father called me. He was in the hospital again. His voice was weak. "Son," he said, "if anything happens to me, promise me something." I waited. He said, "Promise me you'll raise your children differently. With love. With listening." I closed my eyes and said, "I promise." The documentary was released 3 months later. It was titled, "The Boy Who Listened." It was watched by millions. People from Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, and even Canada started sending messages. Some wanted to volunteer. Some wanted to donate. Others just wrote to say thank you. I thought I was alone. We were invited to speak in different countries. We couldn't go to all of them, but we promised to train local leaders through online sessions. At this point, the listening project had grown beyond us. We had a team, a website in 5 languages, a small office, a printing machine for our booklets, a group of volunteers we called the Safe Voices. But every time things got busy, I would return to the mango tree and sit with the children, because that's where it all began. 5 years later, I stood under the same mango tree again, this time not as a broken boy but as a grown man. Children sat around me, bright eyes, hopeful faces. Samuel was beside me. He now ran the project full-time. We had offices in 6 countries, hundreds of volunteers, a healing center named The Quiet Room, where children could come and talk. As I looked at those young faces, I felt peace. Then one boy raised his hand and asked, "Uncle Daniel, why do you do all this? You're not rich. You're not famous." I smiled and said, "Because I know how it feels when no one listens. And I never want any child to feel that way again." Parents, please remember, children are not problems to fix. They are hearts to understand. Discipline without love creates fear. Rules without listening build walls. But one calm voice, one soft hug, one patient question can save a life. So the next time your child looks upset, don't say, "What is wrong with you?" Instead, ask, "What happened, my child? I'm here for you." Because sometimes all a child needs is someone who listens.